Hello, in this video we are going to learn how to recreate the installation of WDS or Windows Deployment Services in the event that the server that you install is pointing to a storage location that doesn't have enough storage space for all the images that you're trying to install. So in this case, I have a good example for you. So I have Windows Server 2012 running on this VM virtual machine. So if I go to Windows Deployment Services, you will see that indeed it is already installed and there is a server running. So it is this particular server, which is the host server in my case. And this server, this Windows Deployment Services, is actually pointing to the C drive. And under the remote install, I do have an image group under images, and under boot, I also have a set of files that I install for one of my boot images. So in this particular case, I noticed that even though I installed WDS Windows Deployment Services, I selected a storage location that doesn't have enough space for all the images that I need to install. So that is because my C drive only has 2.57 gigabytes free out of 11.3 gigabytes that I allocated for my C drive. So what do I do in that case if I want to install images and I don't have enough space in the C drive of my Windows server? So what I do is I shut down the virtual machine. So I'm going to click on machine, and then actually close the virtual machine, power off the machine, click on OK. So now what I will do is I go to the settings of the virtual machine that I want to modify. I'm going to select storage. I'm going to add new storage attached to this virtual machine. I'm going to select hard disk as the type of storage that will be attached. And then I go to create, and it will be in the form of VDI. That will be the file type that I am selecting for my new storage. I can go with VMDK as well if needed, but I'm going to go with the default of VDI. Then it will be dynamically allocated. That means that it is going to be used only when the virtual machine needs it. That way I am not sacrificing a space from my host computer, my laptop in my case, by fixing storage to this VM. So I'm going to only dynamically allocate the storage when needed. Click on next. For my case, I'm going to use only 10 gigabytes of additional storage that I need. So I'm going to create it, and here it is, and then choose, and there you go. This is the new storage that has been allocated to my VM. So I click on OK, and then I'm going to start the VM. It's going to take a few seconds for the virtual machine to start. And here it goes. So it's booting up as we speak. This is an instance of Windows Server 2012 R2. That's what the operating system that I am running on this VM. So I'm going to send the Control-Alt-Delete command to my VM, and then log on with the credentials that I selected for this administrator account when I created the VM. So I'm going to allow for the operating system to fully boot up. And now I have my Windows Server 2012 running. Of course, I already have WDS installed. That is the installation of WDS that is pointing to the C drive, which has limited storage. So I need to now recreate my Windows Deployment Services, and the way that I am choosing to do it right now is by going to all servers. I'm going to delete my instance of WDS, so I'm going to scroll down under all servers, scroll down all the way to the bottom, look for roles and features. I'm going to filter for deployments because I'm looking for Windows Deployment Services. I see that it is here installed, so I'm going to click on tasks and then remove roles and features. I'm going to click on next, select the server. Of course, it will be the server that I am using right now, the only one that I have in this particular environment. Click on next, and then I'm going to look for Windows deployment services. Even though it is selected with a check mark, my advice is click on the check mark because you want to enable this window here. So I'm going to click on remove features, and then next, and next, and remove. So that is going to take care of removing the previous installation of Windows deployment services that I had on my test server. If you're dealing with a production environment, you may need to do additional housekeeping activities before removing the server or choosing a different method to point to another location. It gets a little bit more complex if you already have a production environment. So a restart is pending on this server, so you must restart the destination server to finish removing the features. So I'm going to click on close, and then before I go ahead and reboot the server, I'm going to go to Windows Explorer, go to the C drive, and this is the folder that was created by my previous instance of WDS or Windows Deployment Services. So what I will do is I will delete it completely from my C drive. So I'm going to click on yes, and it may be because the service is still running, so I'm going to have to wait for the reboot. So I'm going to go ahead and reboot the server. I'm going to restart. Stopping all the services, and by the time I am able to boot up to Windows Server 2012 again, I will be able to remove the remote install folder from the C drive and create a new instance of WDS pointing to the new created space that I allocated to my VM. So I'm logging on with my administrator account. So I'm going to do a couple of prerequisites before installing the new instance of Windows deployment services on this server. So step number one, I'm going to the C drive, selecting remote install, and deleting that folder completely. That is going to get rid of the share that was created with my previous instance of Windows deployment services. That's step number one. If you take a look at my computer, I don't have the newly allocated 10 gigabytes of storage that I created in this particular VM. So what I need to do is I need to go under disk manager. So I'm going to type in disk, and this will give me the ability to open disk management. It's telling me to initialize the space, the disk that I assigned to this VM in the first step of the video. So I'm going to click on OK, maximize this window. This is a disk management window. This is the 10 gigabytes that I allocated as additional space for my VM to use. So I'm going to right click, select new simple volume, click on next, next, and assign drive letter E as the drive letter that will be used for the new 10 gigabytes of space that I am allocated to this VM. So I'm going to click on next, select NTFS. That will be my preference, my choice. So I'm going to go with NTFS, perform a quick format, click on finish. And here it is. This is the new volume that I am allocated for my VM, the 10 gigabytes of storage space that I am looking for to be added for my VM to use in order to have enough storage for the images that I am going to deploy to my clients. So I'm going to mark partition as active and then close disk management, and the new volume is right here. This is the E drive that I just created with the 10 gigabytes of free space for my images. So now that I have the storage available to me, what I will do is I'm going to repeat the steps of adding the feature for or the role for Windows deployment services. So I'm going to click on next, next, and here I'm going to select Windows deployment services and add the features that are needed. Click on next, 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 and I'm going to do deployment server and transport server. Click on next, and finally install. That's gonna take a few seconds, and I will see a message that says installation succeeded or completed successfully. And the installation succeeded. So I'm going to click on close. And as I mentioned in other videos, in order to manage Windows deployment services, I need to go to the tools option, select Windows deployment services, and here it is, Windows deployment services. However, the server that I am running Windows deployment services on is not configured yet, so I'm going to have the opportunity to configure. And this is the critical step in which you will be pointing to the new storage location that you provided to this VM. So I'm going to select standalone server because that is the environment that I am running. This server is not part of Active Directory. So I'm going to click on next. And here the default location is the C drive. But we don't want to go to the C drive. We do not want to go to the C drive because we know the C drive doesn't have enough storage space allocated for my images. So I'm going to go to the E drive, which is the one that I created by the new volume that I created after I added the additional 10 gigabytes of space. So I'm going to click on next, and here respond to all clients and require administrator approval for unknown computers, and then click on next. And it's going to start Windows deployment services, and then it gives me the option to add images if I want to the server now. I'm gonna uncheck that because that's not what I am going to do right now. I want to show you something before we complete this video. So I'm going to click on finish, and here it is. So my new instance of Windows deployment services has been configured and is already started and it is running. And the way for you guys to know that now you will be pointing to the 10 gigabytes of space that you allocated to this VM is because if you go to the E drive, you see the remote install folder in the E drive rather than in C, which was the previous location under your previous installation of WDS or Windows Deployment Services. Again, in summary, what we did is we found ourselves with a Windows Deployment Services instance that was pointing to a storage location that didn't have enough space, disk space, to store our images. So what do we do now? We don't have enough storage space, and we keep on getting error messages whenever we try to add an image to our Windows Deployment Services. So what we did is we uninstalled Windows Deployment Services. We created a new volume of 10 gigabytes, and we assigned the drive letter E on our VM for this new 10 gigabytes of storage space that we allocated for this VM. And then we repeated the installation of Windows Deployment Services, and we configured the server to point to the E drive now instead of the C drive. So in summary, those are the steps that we follow. You will see that remote install is here, and then you can easily install an image or install a boot image, installation image, or boot image, depending on what you want to do, and you will have hopefully enough space for what you're trying to do, at least more than what you had before with the C drive. Thank you very much. Until next time.